afternoon, and thank you for joining us on Across the Fence. I'm Jolene Whitney. The floods of this summer and last summer may have receded, but the effects of flooding on agricultural businesses, nonprofits, and farms continue to impact those hardest hit by these natural disasters. In late August, Governor Phil Scott announced the Business Emergency Gap Assistance Program, or BEGAP, was available as a grant program for businesses, nonprofits, landlords, and farms that suffered physical damage from the flooding. The deadline for this program ends on November 15th. And to talk about the details of BEGAP, I'm joined by Vermont Secretary of Agriculture, Anson Tebbetts. Great to see you as always.
Great to be here. Thank you very much.
We're happy to have you come in. And so as I just said, these are considered grants. So are the applications based on the amount of damage that people sustained?
Yeah, so it's being managed by the Agency of Commerce and Community Development, and the Agriculture Agency is part of that. So we have about $7 million available to all business, nonprofits, and farmers. And 40% of those dollars can go to the agriculture community because significant damage, as you know, was done to our farm community with the flash floods. Two events, one in July and one in the end of July as well. So there was two major flooding events. So this program was available last year as well because of the flooding. So farmers can apply and get it's about 30% of their losses. This is an application. So this is not a program that's going to make them whole for their total losses, but it does give them some money to pay some bills to recover from the significant damages that occurred in July.
And applications like this sometimes can be difficult with maybe some questions that are harder to answer. So do you have any help for farmers to fill out the forms?
Yes, we do. We're very fortunate to have folks because sometimes, we're asking for information, we're asking for documentation. It's an online application, although if someone does not want to do it online, we can do a paper application and get someone on the phone to help them. So I think that's important. So people start the application, maybe they have some questions about it, maybe they are missing some information that we need. So we have people that can walk them through the process, complete the application, and then we can evaluate it and then hopefully make an award.
Sure, and how about for non-English speakers?
Absolutely, we have translation services for all our applications.
Great, so lots of help for people out there. And you encourage people to call if they have a question, is that right? No dumb questions here?
Absolutely not, because they may be just confused by a question, confused by uploading a document or something like that. So it's really important that we work through the process. You mentioned November 15th is the deadline, so we do want people to continue to apply, work through it. And we've been successful in handing out some of the money already to our farm community so they can pay some of those bills.
Great, and I know we were just showing it, but we'll show it again in a second, the email and the phone number that people can reach out to in case they need to ask any questions. And we talked a little bit about crops and animals, and when people think of farming, that might be what they think of more often. But what about off-farm things like food production, food manufacturing businesses that were interrupted?
Yeah, absolutely. And if it doesn't qualify maybe in the ag sector, it could file in the business sector, which would be handled by the Agency of Commerce and Community Development. It could be a restaurant, it could be a business that was in the floodplain. We had communities, you take Lindenville, for example, had a number of businesses that were flooded, but we also had in the hill sections of Lindenville, we had a number of farmers that were impacted by the major flooding and the flash flooding.
Sure, so there's some money available no matter what you're asking about.
Yeah, there should be, and it's just a matter of people, getting the application, go online to either the Agency of Agriculture or the community or the Agency of Commerce, look it out, start filling it out. If there's questions, just reach out for help, and hopefully someone can walk you through any questions you have.
Sure, and you already highlighted most businesses are covered by this, but let's touch on just one more. How about agritourism, maybe apple picking or things like that?
Yeah, if there's crop damage or physical damage to, maybe there's some equipment that was underwater, maybe it was a tractor, maybe it was a building that was underwater. So any agriculture business, and again, 40% of the dollars that are allocated out of the 70 million must go to agriculture. Of course, it could be more, but they must go to agriculture.
And we've both said now November 15th is the deadline for the BEGAP program, but what other things is the Vermont Agency of Agriculture helping provide people damaged by flooding?
Well, the other thing to think about is our partners with the federal government, with USDA, the Farm Services Agency, or the Natural Resources NRCS. So it's important to check in with them. We've had a designation by the USDA of a disaster declaration. So farmers should be checking in with either FSA or NRCS to talk about Maybe there's some emergency loans. Maybe there's some help with debris cleanup. So they're an important partner with us as we navigate this second year in a row of flooding.
And you say this is the second year in a row, and you were saying even before the taping there were a lot of things that you guys learned going into this year. So how has the rollout this year been different from last?
Well, a lot of the systems, a lot of the programs were already in place. We had that significant event last year to the day with the flood. So a lot of the things were in place. This granting program was available last year, so we didn't have to build a program. We didn't have to, figure a lot of those sort of back end things that take some time and effort. So we were successful in, I think, getting money to our farmers and our businesses much quicker this year because of what we learned last year.
Yeah, that's incredible being able to help so soon. And now let's maybe talk about something a little bit lighter. We actually just spoke with Terry Bradshaw with UVM, and they say that their apple crop has been banner this year. Is that the same across the board? How's harvest?
Yeah, I'm hearing great stories. We've also had an incredible stretch of nice weather for people to get out, particularly on your pick your own operations, which is very, very important. And not only a decent crop, but also it looks like the fruit is much bigger as well. So I think it's, they had that frost a year ago that hurt the crop last year, but things have recovered. The trees got a break, and I think a lot of people have been enjoying it. And it's been just some of the weekends we've had over the fall have been fantastic for people to visit farm stands, pick your own operations, and also a lot of farm chores are getting done in record time, I think, because of the good weather. Hasn't been a lot of rain, and it's been quite mild and quite warm for folks.
So how about across the board? Are other crops also faring that well from what you've heard?
Yeah, for the most part, I think people had a pretty good summer outside of that July. That July seems to bite us the last couple of years. But for the most part, people were, I think, pretty happy in some sections that weren't impacted with flooding with the corn crop, particularly for feed for livestock. I think the forages were pretty decent. There was some areas, of course, in all of Vermont that it's not always the same. But I think for the most part, I think it was a pretty decent summer outside of these historic floods that happened in some regions of Vermont.
And you spend a lot of your time meeting with farmers out in the field, and what have you heard from them about what they need?
Well, affordability is, of course, the big issue. Expenses are high. Fuel continues to be an issue. Supplies are high. So they're right in the middle of taxes and paying property taxes and all that. So I think our farm community is always concerned about the affordability of Vermont. Farmers can grow incredible crops and food for us. And we're blessed to have that, but at times they always struggle with the affordability issues, whether it's the cost of feed or cost of fertilizer, cost of equipment, cost of fuel. So affordability is really, really important for our farm community.
And we already talked about what the federal and the state government are doing for farmers, but what can everyday Vermonters do? Should I go pick my own apples? Should I order my Thanksgiving turkey from them? Absolutely,
yeah. Good to mention. We are approaching Thanksgiving, and this is a time if you really want to support your neighbor. We have a number of wonderful local turkey producers. You can either maybe go to them and order directly from them, or you can visit your retail operation. Maybe it's a co-op, maybe it's a store. And that is all very, very helpful. We also have a wonderful selection of farm stands you can buy directly from our farmers, which is great for our farm community because you're getting to know your neighbor, but you're also supporting them in a big way. So, and there's CSAs, so those are available in the fall, and also people can sign up throughout the winter for those to get their vegetables, whether it be meat or produce.
And there's another nice way that Vermonters kind of get their name on the map, and that's the Big E. Before we wrap up today, how's this year faring? Was Vermont Day as popular as usual? It was. The Big E, West Springfield, Massachusetts. We have 27 companies that go down there and just sell Vermont and scream Vermont. And it was, again, the weather was good at the fair. We had record attendance on Vermont Day. And we are so thankful for all the people that go down there, whether it be a 4-H club, whether it be someone that sells Vermont to other people down in southern New England. But it's a very popular building, and the Agency of Agriculture manages it. And it was a very, very good year for them. And we're very happy about all that went on at the Big E this year, and we're getting ready for next year as well. That's great to hear. And let's jump topics one more time today. We've heard reports of about 2 horses and 1 human that came down with triple E or Eastern equine encephalitis. So is that something that you guys are monitoring?
Yeah, and this is going to probably be with us until we get that really, really hard killing frost, and that would kill the mosquitoes. So the message from the public, just be aware of it. Some parts of Vermont are more risk areas than others. But also going forward, the horses that did pass away were not vaccinated for this. So that's something that our folks in the equine industry might consider if they're not vaccinating their horses against this disease. And of course, the health department is handling all the sort of the public health aspect of it. The Agency of Agriculture is the one that goes out and tests the pools of mosquitoes. And we're done testing for the year because we think we're on the tail end of this. But we'll start again in the spring, and we monitor every week testing for these pools to see if it's present in the mosquitoes. And this year was a particularly rough year for that, and it had been a decade since unfortunately, we had a person pass away because of it.
And I know you can't see the future at all, but is this something you foresee happening again next year, or is it just a matter of testing?
The entomology folks that do this say it goes in a sort of a cycle, and it was time for this cycle again. But I think we'll be doing a lot more monitoring and just making sure, and a lot of it will depend on what kind of weather we have next year as well. But it's something that we monitor every year. It's important to do the testing of these pools to make sure it's not there. And then we work closely with the health department on our actions after we get those pools that are yay or nay.
Sure, but if you head out, avoid evenings, mornings, long sleeves, bug spray.
And we've had, the last couple of weeks we had some really still warm weather, so some of the mosquito population still may have been with us. We did have a bit there where it did get cold 1 or 2 nights and may have helped a little bit. But we think we're on the downside of it, but it's still until it's really, the mosquitoes are not flying about at all.
Sure.
It is always a possibility of risk.
All right, thank you so much for joining us today.
You bet, thank you very much.
And that puts the wrap on another Across the Fence. I want to thank the crew behind the scenes here at WCAX who make our program possible. I'm Jolie Whitney, have a good one.